The gun discharged. It was an accidental discharge. I was trying to take out the magazine and it went off. They was both in bed. I was in their room. Where was your wife? She was in her room. Those are the words, ladies and gentlemen, of that man seated right over there, Jermaine Bass. Those were the words he told those deputies when they arrived and found these children shot in the head. That was his explanation to them of why 2 children were shot in the head. Accident discharge. I was trying to take out the magazine and it went off. That was his explanation. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see this was no accident. This was not an accident. You're also going to hear, he will tell them where the gun is. In the dresser, upstairs, a silver dresser. You're going to hear him tell them, and sure enough, they go there, they find that gun, and ladies and gentlemen, that gun is the murder weapon. That is the gun that fired the bullets into Jayla Bass and killed her. And the evidence is going to show that. He told them right where that gun was, right next to his wallet. You will not only hear these things, you will see him say these things to the deputies when they arrive on scene. You're going to hear from some of the responding deputies that arrived. These deputies wear what are called body-worn cameras. These cameras capture interactions with citizens, interactions during events. They come on generally when they're responding to a scene. They're not on all the time, but they come on when they're responding to a scene. And these came on for some of these deputies. So you are going to see Jermaine Bass that night. You're going to hear his explanation to the deputies of how both his children ended up shot in the head. What you will not hear from him are any questions about how is his daughter doing? How is his son doing?
Objection. Improper argument.
Sustained.
You will never hear him say it was anyone else other than it was an accidental discharge while I was taking out the magazine. That's what you will hear. But the evidence will show you, ladies and gentlemen, this was no accidental discharge. 5 shots from that Glock. 4 hit their target. 3 of them went into the head of Jayla Bass, his daughter, his 5-year-old daughter, as she lay in the bed right next to her brother, who was also shot in the head, in the temple. These were aimed, they were precise, they were targeted right to the most crucial part of the body, the head. 5 shots, 4 in the head. That's what the evidence is going to show you, ladies and gentlemen. On August 29th of 2022, this defendant right here walked into that bedroom where these 2 little children were laying in their bed, and he shot 5 times into their heads. Why this man would take the life of his 5-year-old daughter, Jayla Bass, and attempt to take the life of his 8-year-old son, Jermaine Bass, we may not know. We may never know. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, I told you during voir dire that we don't have to prove motive. But ladies and gentlemen, you will hear some evidence. You will hear some evidence that something was not right in the Bass household. Something was not going right there. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is going to show you that this house involved Jermaine Bass, who lived there with his wife, Shirley Bass, and their daughter, Jayla, and the son, Jermaine, as well. And it might get a little confusing, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm going to probably call the son JJ. That's kind of the nickname they gave him, because both the son and father are both named Jermaine Bass, and there's no like junior or anything like that. So if you hear me from time to time use the word JJ, I'm referring to the son. So on this date, on August 29th of 2022, you're going to hear that Shirley Bass, the wife, went by herself to a birthday dinner for her sister. You're going to hear that evening she left around 6 o'clock. She drove down, and where this happened is on Heritage Club. And I believe I told you about this during Bordire. This is an area up near USF. It's up near the Advent Hospital up there on Bruce B. Downs and Fletcher. Right kind of behind there, back in a little neighborhood there. And these are like townhomes that they lived in, okay? It's got an upstairs where the children's bedroom is, and there's a downstairs where it's kind of the kitchen and like a kind of a great room. And you're going to hear that she left at 6. In fact, you'll see video of her car, her white Mercedes pulling out and heading towards Ruth's Chris Steakhouse down on West Shore. Okay, so she had to go all the way down Fletcher, get on 275, go all the way down to West Shore, if you all are familiar with the area, and then go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, where she was meeting the family for a celebration dinner for her sister. You're going to hear from some people who were at that dinner, and they will tell you Shirley was happy, everything seemed fine. Shirley goes there that night with her niece, China Gadsden, and you're going to hear from China Gadsden as well. All right? She's going to tell you that they were having a wonderful time. As Shirley went, and they had dinner, and everyone was getting along very well. Jermaine was not there. He was supposed to be home taking care of the kids. But he was not home taking care of the kids. The evidence is going to show that he left those kids, drove all the way to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Basically followed Shirley Bass. Why? We don't know, ladies and gentlemen. But he did. The phone records will conclusively show that he left. We also have video of his Nissan truck pulling out and leaving that residence, not long after Shirley leaves. You're going to hear from China that when they were driving away, as they were leaving Ruth's Chris, there was this truck behind her that was really driving aggressively and scaring her. She didn't know what was going on. It's tailgating her. So just as she's pulling onto the on-ramp to get on the interstate, this truck is right on her tail, and she's scared. So she stops the car. This truck pulls around her and stops in front. And who gets out of that car? Jermaine Bass. Gets out of that car angry and goes up to the driver's door, thinking that it would be his wife in the driver's seat, but it was China. So he looks at his wife and says, "Are you drunk?" He then goes back into his car and drives away. Don't know why that was, but it's clear, ladies and gentlemen, there was some problems going on in that household. There is evidence to show that there was something going on in that household. And Jermaine Bass, the defendant here, was not happy about it. So you're going to hear that they drive home. Shirley drops off China at her house, which she lived up in that same sort of area. And she goes home. And you're going to see video from an apartment complex. In this video is part of it shows the parking lot area in front of the residence where Shirley and Jermaine lived. And you're going to see the defendant pull in this big truck, park the truck, go inside. A few minutes later, you're going to see Shirley's car pull up. She's going to park the car, and then she goes in. Less than 8 minutes later, you're going to see Shirley Bass outside, looking for help, frantic. Shots had rang out. Just a few minutes from coming home from this dinner to celebrate her sister. Shots. Those are the shots that killed Jayla and seriously hurt Jermaine, JJ. You're going to see video of her out there walking around, looking for help. You're going to hear from one of her neighbors, Daquan Evans, who's going to tell you that he heard these shots. It woke him up. So he walks outside and he sees Shirley Bass. And he's on the phone calling 911 and letting them know, "I've heard shots in my neighborhood." And you're going to hear that 911 call. And you will hear Daquan Evans, and then you will hear Shirley get on that phone call. You're going to hear a woman who's frantic, hysterical, It's a very difficult, hard to understand conversation. But you're going to hear her screaming, "My family, you need to get down here. I need help." And she's on that phone with 911. Is the defendant calling 911? No, but you're going to hear evidence that he called another number. After shooting these children, he calls another number, doesn't even call 911. So Shirley's out there, and you're going to hear the whole 911 call. It'll go into evidence. You will have it back there to listen to when you go back and deliberate later in this trial. And you're going to hear that around the 2-minute mark, 2:40 minutes, 2 minutes, 2:40, something changes in Shirley Bass. And based on the video you're going to see of her out there on the phone when she's talking to 911, and at one point she starts jumping. But you're going to see that the door opens up to the house of Shirley and Jermaine, and she walks over there. And right about that time, you're going to hear Shirley Bass on that phone screaming at somebody, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" She's yelling at that man right there, Jermaine Bass. It may not be clear if she knows what he's done, but she knows he's done something. And she screams, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" She says it a couple of times. So you're going to hear that 911 call on that night. And then after that 911 call, the deputies arrive. And this is where you'll see what the deputies see when they get there. You're going to get to see it. Because this body-worn camera, it's going to take you into the house. It's going to take you into the apartment. And you're going to see how they walk in there. You're going to see Jermaine Bass holding JJ. And JJ's got a bullet hole to his head. He's still coherent. He's still alive. And he's in pain because he's saying, "Ow, my head." And Jermaine's just holding him. And they ask him, "Is there anyone else here?" He says, "No." So these deputies are clearing the house. And they do what they do when they come into a house and they don't know the situation. They want to make sure they know where everyone is. So they go and check out the rooms, make sure they clear the rooms. And they're going to tell you all about that. That's when they go upstairs and they go into the child's room. And suddenly one of them notices it's a little girl. And you're going to hear her. You're going to hear the moment you notice her. And you're going to hear him go, "Sweetie." And you will see from the body-worn camera, the deputy reach over to take her off that bed. And he will tell you how he takes her off the bed and brings her down, and they try to administer life-saving support for her, but it's too late. But you will see her position. You will see her curled in that bed with blood all around her. This is what those deputies saw on that day. So they take her out. They take Jermaine away. The ambulance arrives and they get him out of there. And then you're going to see the defendant calmly telling him those things that I told you. I was unloading the magazine and it went off. So at this point, they start to collect the physical evidence. And this is where you're going to see all the physical evidence that was collected in this case. You're going to see the shell casings. 5 shell casings that belong to a .380 Glock. All 5 shell casings were found on the bed, the bunk bed in the room. This is a bunk bed. 4 of the casings are found in the top bunk. 1 of the casings is found in the bottom bunk. So again, this is a crime scene. Children have been removed to hopefully save them. And now they are securing the crime scene and they're reviewing all the evidence. And this is what they find. They find damage hole to one of the walls where a bullet clearly went through. And you're going to see that it did go through, and it goes into the bathroom, and the adjoining bathroom, and it goes through that bathroom and into the wall. And they were able to obtain that projectile. You're going to see pictures of the condition of the residence at that time. You're going to see pictures of a lot of blood. And I want to warn you that you will. okay? But it's important that you pay attention to those pictures and look at those pictures. You're going to hear from a DNA expert. The Glock is found exactly where the defendant said it would be, in the silver dresser, right next to his wallet. And that Glock is taken out. It's looked at. The magazine in it is now empty. There's no other ammunition in the Glock. And they take that Glock in, and it gets analyzed. The comparison is done with the shell casings, and yes, they match. Those shell casings found in the room were in fact fired from that firearm. And you're going to have the firearms expert who's going to testify to you and explain to you how they know that. You'll also hear that the gun was swabbed. And what that means is they take like a solution or water and they rub it on the gun in different areas to determine whether they can pick up any DNA. And you're going to hear that on the grip and trigger, it's combined, so we don't know if it's both or so. But on the grip / trigger, as well as on the base of the gun where the magazine is put in, they're able to obtain DNA. And the DNA does match, in fact, Jermaine Bass. But there's one other source of the DNA, and you're going to hear that it matches the son, JJ, the other Jermaine Bass. Now, I want you to listen to that expert, and she's going to testify to you, and she's also explained to you about transfer DNA and how that occurs. If you touch someone and they're sweating or their skin cells get on you, and then you touch an object, you can transfer that person's DNA. Any bodily fluid can transfer the DNA to that property. And you're going to hear from that DNA expert who's going to explain all that to you. You're also going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, from a lady by the name of Anna Cox, who's what's called a blood spatter expert or blood stain expert. She's going to tell you and talk to you about those pictures and the blood analysis that she shows. What she will tell you is that both of these children were shot right next to each other. That their heads literally had to be almost touching. You're going to hear about what's called blood spatter, but it's where when a person is shot, the blood, once a bullet enters, has to expel from the body. And when it does, it creates a pattern. She's going to explain all that to you. And you're going to hear that the only place that pattern appears is on that top bunk, on the corner, by the wall, and on the railing there. The DNA on that spot matches the DNA of Jayla Bass and JJ, Jermaine Bass. She's going to tell you they were right next to each other when they were shot. The last moments of Jayla's life was laying in that bed next to her big brother. You're going to hear about other blood. Their blood drips down from the bed to the lower bunk bed, creating other patterns. She's going to describe all that to you. Ladies and gentlemen, her father, the owner of that gun, wanted these deputies to believe this was an accident.
Objection, improper argument.
Overruled.
That is what he told them. In those initial moments when the deputies arrived, that's what he tells them. This was an accident. An accidental discharge of 5 rounds. This isn't an automatic gun where you hold it down and it just fires repeatedly. You're going to hear from the firearms expert. Every single one of those 5 shots had to pull that trigger. Every single one. It's not that if you hold it down, it'll go off. You're going to hear from this firearms expert. This was no accident, ladies and gentlemen. Not even close. This was a deliberate, intentional, premeditated act to kill those 2 children. Done by that man right there, Jermaine Bass. The state has no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of the evidence in this case, that you will find the defendant guilty as charged of first-degree murder, guilty as charged of aggravated child abuse, 2 counts, and guilty as charged of attempted first-degree murder. Thank you.
Would the defense like to make an opening statement?